So let's take a look at some of the operators that exist in Java. And an operator basically is just something that goes in between two variables or two things inside of a Java statement. And a good way to think about this is we already do this in arithmetic, in any kind of math. We already have operators that we use to add numbers together. It's the same concept here. In Java, in fact, we have math operators. And I'm going to go down this list. I haven't included all the operators here. I've just included a lot of the basic ones. So this is not all the operators that exist, but it's the ones that are the most basic. For someone learning Java, you're not going to need to know every single thing. I'm trying to reduce this set down. So the math operators, you can see here, these are basic ones that you're probably already familiar with. Subtraction. If you use a subtraction operator, you can say 3 minus 2, and then the response that's going to come out is going to be 1. Same thing with plus. You have a multiplication. If we go down the line here, you'll see there's two division operators. One of them is a whole number division, and the other one is called modular or modulus. And what this does is if you take, for example, 5 and you use the regular division sign, the slash, divided by 2, the result is going to be 2 because it's only going to give you whole numbers. It's so that you're not having something that was a whole number type and converting it to a decimal. That is if you're working with whole numbers. If you're working with a decimal type and you do the regular division, it's going to give you a decimal number. But if you're working with integers or whole numbers, it's only going to give you a whole number back. And that's why that second modulus operand exists. That operator, it looks like a percent sign. If you said 5 mod 2 or 5 divide 2 using that operator, it's going to give you back the remainder, which is going to be 1. So a little bit confusing if you're not familiar with the concept, but it's basically the 1 gives you back the whole numbers that go in, and then the second one, the modular one, gives you back whatever the remainder would be if you're doing long division and you got a remainder. That's the value. Next down the line, you see this weird plus plus and minus minus. All this does, these are called increment and decrement operators, and if you put this at the end of a variable or a statement, it will make it so that that variable gets incremented. So if you had a variable x that was equal to 1 and then you did a plus plus, it's now going to be equal to 2. And if you did minus minus, it would be equal to 0. So it's just basically a shorthand way of incrementing or assigning that variable, whatever it was, plus another, or whatever it was, minus another. And there's a version of this where you can do this before or after a variable. And we're not getting into the specifics of that right now, but just to know that you have that ability. So the next set of operators is assignment operators. And we already seen some of this in usage. We already use an assignment operator to assign a value. When we said int x equals 3, we use this equal operator, and that allowed us to assign a value to a variable. This is how we give a variable a value. And then you have all these weird looking assignment operators. You have a plus equal, a minus equal, a multiplication equal. All this does is this is another shorthand, and this is a shorthand for saying take my value and then assign it to whatever I put on the right hand side of this operator, plus whatever it was, or minus whatever it was, or multiplied by whatever it is. And so this is just a shorthand. We can write out the plus operator for example, the plus equal. If we said x plus equal 3, it's going to be whatever its value was plus 3. So we could rewrite that as x equals x plus 3. It's just a shorthand, but we have all these operators for each one of the corresponding math operators. Next is relational operators, and these operators are going to compare two things. And as we get into conditional statements, then this is going to make more sense. But for now, we're just going to overview what these operators are. What it basically lets you do is to evaluate whether two different numbers or variables or types and see is one greater or less than the other, are they equal, are they not equal. And this is going to be important when you want to choose something, when you want to say if this number is greater than the other one, then I want to do this. Or if this number is less than the other one, then let's stop this loop. So you can see that these probably already make sense here. A lot of these, you have a greater than symbol, a less than symbol, greater than or equal to. This is true if it's greater than or equal to, a less than or equal to, and then this equal equal. This is a true equal, and the reason why this exists in Java is so that assignment doesn't get confused. So when you see an equal equal, it's actually asking the question, are these two equal, rather than saying I want to assign this value. And then the last one is not equal, and this is asking whether or not these two values are not equal. It's true if it's not equal. It's the opposite of the equal equal. Finally, we have logical operators, and once again, this we'll go through a little bit of an example of this, but you have your and, an or, and a not. And the first one, the two ampersands, is an and it works just like logic. If you're taking a logic class, or you're familiar with logic statements, truth tables, it's the exact same concept here. If you have a variable that's equal to true, and you apply an and to it, or an and to a variable that is also equal to true, the result is true. If you had a variable that was equal to true, and you say and another variable that was equal to false, it's going to be equal to false, because they both everything has to be true for an and statement. The or, either one can be true. So if you had a variable that's equal to true, put the or in between, and you had another variable that's equal to false, the result is going to be true. The only way an or is not going to be true is if both sides are false. And then the not just reverses whatever the value is of a variable. If you had a variable that was equal to true and you put a not in front of it, it would now be equal to false. If you had a variable that was equal to false and you put a not in front of it, it would be equal to true. And these apply only to Boolean types of variables, which a Boolean type is one that can be either true or false.